Hey everybody, this is Perch. I think something is happening. It's kind of happening in the background. I don't know how much this is ever really going to come out as a thing. I think it's one of those things that you'll be able to look back on years from now and you'll say, "Hey, something changed. There's a difference that's occurred." I think that's kind of where it's all going to line up. And what is that thing? It's that the multi-billion dollar corporations are growing tired. They're growing weary, if you will, of social media, Twitter nonsense. And the crackdown is coming. It's coming fast, and it's going to be more brutal than we've seen in the past. So let me explain a couple things just that I'm predicting here, and then I'll give you a couple examples of things I've heard. I was talking to a reasonably well placed executive at one of the big two, it's Marvel, and we were talking about, in particular, distribution and some of the changes that are coming to that company, in particular around how how basically the last year and a half has shed a lot of jobs. The company has obviously struggled with the parks closing as a big revenue source. Entertainment's not been in the best shape, and that was really helping prop up the company. And basically, a lot of things are moving. They're changing, and some jobs have been shuttered. And what if you lived in corporate America? One thing that happens with recessions is there's what's called a double bump. And some of you are like, "Yep, I know exactly what that means." Let me explain what it means very quickly for the people who don't. It means that when bad news hits, when a stock market falls or a company suffers, they tend to do immediate layoffs. They tend to do an immediate shedding of employees, typically employees that were right on the bubble or ones that were deemed operationally not really necessary, and the business contracts. People get jobs shed, and then for a period of time, there's kind of a rebuilding phase where the company grapples with what it means to have fewer employees, and in fact, in some cases, they will actually hire some new people on to kind of fill some gaps that were created from the layoffs. But then becomes the double bump, the second bump, and that is a second round of layoffs that often takes people by surprise because human nature is really geared around the idea that you get bad news once and then you recover. And so this is like a second helping of bad news. Many people don't see it coming. They believe, "I survived the first layoff, and why are we having another one?" Well, if you take a step back to what typically happens to a company in these scenarios is when a company is trucking along and then they have the big first round of layoffs. The bad news hits, the market suffers, the business is down, and they lay a bunch of people off. The company leadership then tends to wait, and what they're looking for is a couple things. One, some additional people will leave on their own, meaning the company will start to shed some employees as people go, "I don't want to hang out in a company that is unstable, so I'm going to take matters into my own hands and just find another job." So they lose some people that way. Then they also look to say, "Okay, we lost some people. Has the business suffered? Are we seeing a decrease in profits and productivity? What has happened?" Now, everybody is having to work a little bit harder because we lost people, but how much harder? And are we seeing that the loss of people equals loss of profits? Most of the time, they do not. Many companies that lose people, they tend to just kind of, people tend to work a little bit harder because they want to keep their jobs, and you see things even out, and the company tends to recalibrate under this leaner structure. In some cases, companies have self-inflicted bad news in order to, artificially generate this effect where some people leave who may have been on the fence, they get rid of some dead weight, and the overall business is healthier. They have to hire some new people in, but then they typically get to pick and choose, and in many cases renegotiate some deals to their favor. So that double bump is once those activities are completed, they tend to then look at, all right, what are we really going to need to bring us into the future? Who's capable of doing that and who is not? And so they'll lose another group as they continue to kind of cut to get to optimization. Well, Disney is in the process of doing this. So is AT&T. So are many companies right now. The COVID situation caused some immediate layoffs and some recalibration, and now we're getting to that second round. This is something, if you're tracking this politically, that's likely to hurt Joe Biden and the Democrats because they are in power right now. We're heading into the midterms in about a year. And this second bump is going to look like a sluggishness of the recovery. You'll start hearing some stories about that, saying recovery is not as good as we had hoped, or not happening as much as we had projected. And that this happens every time because people are stupid and they ignore the fact that this double bump happens almost every time. And instead, they always appear surprised when there's a slowdown to the recovery. But that's what Joe Biden's into now. What he's got to hope for is that this second bump really occurs in the next 3 to 4 months, not over the next year. And he has a chance to kind of start to see an upswing by the time we get to November of next year. But that's again, if history is our guide, that's unlikely to happen. So what we're seeing in comics is that with a leaner staff, there's less tolerance for what we will call annoying distractions. And over the last just 6 weeks, I have heard more from some creators, but mostly inside editors, people who are FTEs, full-time employees at these companies, who are suddenly more, or I should say, less tolerant of social media, less tolerant of baiting, less tolerant of silliness. Now they realize that they basically employ a number of freelancers, and they can't come down too hard and fast with a rule to say stop it, unless they want to bring these people on as full-time employees. But what you may have noticed, very subtly, very quietly, is not in all cases, but in many cases, I think DC is a big exception. What you're seeing is, especially at Marvel, the editors are making a lot less noise and comments on social media. It's quieter. That's not by accident. They were told to do that. I know for a fact directly firsthand that 2 editors at Marvel were told, hey, maybe don't do that. Maybe stop with social media. Maybe just take a break. Maybe just stick to just promoting the work, because we really don't have the time or the patience to put up with a bunch of bullshit. And this isn't just comic books. This is everywhere. Social media is rapidly turning into one of those issues that the right and the left are in agreement with. I think in agreement in different ways. I think the right wing is certainly more alarmed or concerned about tech manipulation, but the left wing is also concerned about similar things. It's a source that they can't regulate and control, right or left, and so you're seeing a lot more just lack of interest in dealing with it. So what we're seeing is less of an enforcement, because your mind might go to, well, does this mean that they're going to put out actual social media guidelines and people are going to stick to the rules? Probably not. What you're going to see is just people who run their mouth and say crazy shit on social media are just not going to get hired again. Their work is going to get dialed down. And I think there will be some judgments made to, is this person just posting random silly nonsense, or is this person actually causing us headaches? And the eye that's going to start to look at these accounts, and I'm saying this as both a prediction and something I've heard firsthand, is people are starting to look at tweets from within comics or Facebook posts within comics and say, is this something that is going to generate friction, noise, complaints, potential litigation? Is this something that we are going to have to deal with? And I think you kind of take 2 tweets. It's like the person who posts something along the lines of, oh my God, I hate the Detroit airport. It sucks to get through here. I hate flying through here. If I can avoid it, I would. Okay, tweet number 1. It's a hot take on something, but not that hot, because Detroit does suck. But it's a take, but it's not one that's really going to cause anyone to get in any major trouble in comics. Nobody in comics is really going to deal with that. The other take is something along the lines of, hey, this other artist who happens to be non-white, a minority, is part of a hate group, and I don't approve of that person doing an alternate cover for my book. That kind of stuff is going to become very quickly not tolerated. But again, I don't think anybody's going to reach out to that creator and tell them, hey, stop it. They're just going to give that creator less work, even if they make money for the company, because those are the kind of things that are, for lack of a better word, unpredictable. It's predictable in the sense that there will be some comic customers and fans who will see that and get angry and get outraged. There will be some YouTube video made. Honestly, that's not what the publishers care about. That's not what they're worried about. Should they? Sure. Yes, customer service is important. But what they're going to care about is somebody like, I don't know, the AP or Fox News or CNN or Reuters or the BBC, saying they're scared of an article that will basically go, comic creator calls out Asian American for potential racism. And even if the article is written very neutral, very kind of down the middle, all those words are not ones that comic publishers want to deal with right now. And you might say, well, why did they want to deal with them 2 years ago? Good question. Because they weren't paying attention, because life was good, because movies were throwing off billions of dollars, and this noise was easy to ignore. Twitter and Facebook in general have been easy to ignore. But with the extreme polarization of the country, with you get Senate hearings on Russian manipulation through Facebook or any of this kind of stuff, the social media is now being treated like a troublemaker. And a troublemaker means potential lawsuits, it means headaches, it means bad publicity. And there is going to be zero tolerance. It already has started to be zero tolerance. Again, this isn't fully a prediction. The full-time employees of some of these companies are already being told to cut it out. And that's why, again, you may not have noticed, because it's easy to just kind of forget or not notice these changes. But take a look at, say, the Marvel staff. Look at their tweets. Go check out what they've been posting lately. You'll notice it's a lot more benign. Nobody wants to be on this radar. Now, where I'm concerned, this is a good thing. It's a good thing because it's just less nonsense, it's less distraction. This is friction to comics that nobody really wanted or needed, and it's certainly not helpful. I think it's getting, it's not going to get fully solved, but the attention that's going to it is not even for the right reason. I think the right reason would be, hey, we want to have good customer interactions. We want to have people who are consumers of our product not, be treated poorly. But that's not the reason anybody's doing this. The reason they're doing it is because it's starting to attract unpredictable attention. That right now, in this current situation where layoffs are happening, where things are a little squeezed, where nobody has the time to get embroiled in a PR or legal mess. Even if you go back 2 years ago, 3 years ago, to the movie department, completely outside of comics, you would see actors saying things that are off the cuff. I'm not, I don't want to get into a big argument about it. I don't think Brie Larson said that outrageous stuff that a lot of YouTube channels claimed. Everybody goes to the I don't want to talk to white men or whatever it was that she said as part of the interview circuit. It wasn't a good thing. But I also think it got, God, I don't even want to use the word blown out of proportion because it was a dumb thing to say and it shouldn't have been said. But people made a lot more about it than actually existed there, meaning, that you had 500 videos to one comment. So it's just the signal to noise ratio was a lot higher than it should have been. But regardless, again, and this isn't me saying, it's fine, don't worry about it. I'm just saying people made a lot of noise about it. And in the grand scheme of things, I don't know. It got more noise than it warranted. However, you are already seeing that the people who are career actors, actresses, directors, etc., they are starting to withdraw. Not completely. You can easily point out plenty of things in the last 2 weeks that were said that were crazy because social media and hot takes and saying this kind of stuff is a drug. It's absolutely something that people got hooked on, that they keep doing, that it's hard to break that habit. It's bad. But you are starting to see some people pull away from it. You're starting to just see a general exhaustion with having to deal with this crap, kind of all around. And so it is, to me, it's going to resemble a little bit like a game of musical chairs, where the music has stopped. People are right now scrambling to find a seat. And there are going to be 3 or 4 idiots that are going to be still standing up, shouting away. And they'll suddenly look around and realize the world moved past them. And everybody is done. And nobody really has any interest in this anymore. And those people are going to get dropped like a hammer. I look at some of the stuff, I don't know, in comics in particular, there's a handful of people that love to throw out hot takes. And they do not seem entirely aware that they are very easily replaceable, especially on the freelance end. I think Mags is coming to the realization that she is easily replaceable. I mean, you have somebody who is so forthright with trans rights and the LGBTQ community and everything else. And in 2021, both companies published kind of a major initiative effort for Pride Month, and Mags was nowhere to be found on any of that. And a good part, or yeah, part of that is, yeah, people got tired of dealing with it. People just decided, you know what, it's too much headache to have to deal with the blowback of this when I can just, go out and find a dozen other creators who don't have the name, but also don't have the baggage yet, and I'll just work with them. And I think over the next 12 to 24 months, you're going to see a lot more of that as comic publishers just move to, you know what, I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to deal with the headache that this situation is calling. So I'm just not going to. And again, to be clear, it'd be way better if these companies were coming to this conclusion because they want to have good customer service, they want to do right for their buyers, and they're like, this isn't the kind of company we want to be culturally. That would be better. But failing that, I guess we're just going to have to get to what we are getting to, which is, you know what, too much effort. It's too much effort to deal with this stuff. I'm out. That's our future. So again, see this as a bit of a prediction, but also a bit of what I'm hearing behind the scenes, what I'm hearing from people directly. I have not in the last 5 years ever heard as much about people starting to clamp this thing down than I have right now. There is definitely there's been a change, and we will see that play out over the next 2 years. I think it's positive. Again, maybe for the wrong reasons, still positive. Hopefully it helps to create a stronger, better, healthier comic community. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and thanks for listening.